Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. Jones said today Jason Garrett is not coaching for his job this season and will be back in 2014, no matter how the team finishes in the last 6 games. The Cowboys are 5-5 and a half game behind the Eagles for first place in the NFC East. To quote directly, "I'm disappointed we don't have a better record, but he has got us in position to win the division, and we got a team here that I firmly believe has the ability to be one of the better playing teams at the end. And we are positioned to get in the playoffs. We see logically how to get in. We have that for all practical purposes in our control." It's a pretty good spot to be in after 10 games. A lot of this story has to be played out. It does not have a bearing on whether or not he will be our coach next year. It has no bearing on that. When asked directly if Garrett would be back in 2014, Jones said definitively yes. Ed Werder knows this team as well as anybody. Ed, what should we take away from Jones's latest assurance?
Well, Wendy, I've covered Jerry Jones and lived in Dallas from the very beginning in 1989 when he purchased the franchise. And one of the things I'm always mindful of is something he said when his comments one day were contradicted by his actions the next. And that was, when I make a statement, it's really just a statement for that day. So Jason Garrett is under contract for 2014. Jerry Jones does not want to be wrong. He does like working with Garrett, and he doesn't want to fire him. But keep this in mind when you decide how much credibility to attach to these comments today from Jerry Jones. You know, it wasn't that long ago that he said without equivocation that Wade Phillips would remain the Cowboys coach through that season. He noted that he had never in the history of the franchise fired a coach in the middle of the season. 4 days later, Wade Phillips was fired and Garrett was appointed the interim coach. He made a similar declaration when Terrell Owens was causing behavioral issues that were disrupting the locker room. And at the end of that season, he privately assured Owens and his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, that his job was not in jeopardy. He publicly said Owens would remain part of the team. Owens was soon thereafter waived, and he made a similar comment, Wendy, about a deadline trade involving Roy Williams, saying the Cowboys were not going to pursue that. And, of course, ultimately, they did make the trade.
That may be my favorite thing ever. When he makes a statement, it's a statement for that day. I wish, if that could work for all of us, I don't know, it would change things just a bit. But certainly, the key takeaway, I think, for what Ed said is this doesn't really mean anything at all.
You got to take what he says at face value. For today.
For today. He said
Jerry Jones does this every year. It could be a coach, could be about a player. But the bottom line is, guys, he's the owner. He's also the general manager. He makes every decision.
And there are a lot of people that say a lot of different things. And I think that's why you have to be very careful about your words. And the words here that should be used is Jerry Jones plans to keep Jason Garrett. He plans to keep him. But what happens? Plans change sometimes depending on what happens the remainder of the season. If the Dallas Cowboys win the division, yes, Jerry Jones would like to keep Jason Garrett. He really likes Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett's a good football coach. But it doesn't mean because what he's saying today is real that he's going to wind up keeping Jason Garrett. I think a lot will be dependent upon how the season finishes out, Lou.
I always find it interesting when people want to talk a lot about these types of things at this juncture, that it's usually indicative of there being some kind of communication gap or really some kind of disconnect from reality about what's really going on. Because in this situation, and I don't want to say that he doesn't understand that this team needs to play better and that they need to show more progress, but really, wouldn't it just be better served if you just kind of kept this in-house, took a much more methodical approach to assessing your team, and then really just addressed it? I mean, what's so wrong with that kind of approach?
And along those same lines, it's so ridiculous to ever speculate on a coach's future early on. Everybody had Greg Schiano fired a month ago. They've won 2 in a row. The teams look tough and strong. Let the seasons play out, and when it comes time to make decisions about coach's future, then teams will make them and we'll report on them.
And I believe we have another country heard from again, Ed Werder.
Well, I would just say your comments are all right, and I like your analysis, and I think it's very accurate. One more thing I would point out, that it's very curious, the timing of this. It comes after the Cowboys have endured the worst loss since Garrett became the coach, the one-sided defeat in the Superdome to the New Orleans Saints, in which records were set by their defense for futility. You know, it's possible that Jerry Jones sees that his team's getting healthy on defense, and he wants these players. Maybe he saw quit in that game tape, and he's trying to send the message to the locker room that you're going to be accountable to Jason Garrett for more than the next 6 weeks. He's going to decide your fate and whether you make the roster and what your role is beyond this season. I talked to two people who know Jerry Jones and the Cowboys very well, very good sources, and both of them made the point that, hey, if they go 5-11 or they go 6-10, there's no way Jason Garrett's coming back as the head coach of the Cowboys. That Jones's goal here is basically to answer the question for now, to put it aside until he's ready to address it later when he has more of the ultimate facts about how this season plays out. But one of the sources told me, look, if Jason Garrett goes 8-8 and they don't win the division, which is bad, and they don't make the playoffs, he's getting fired.
Ed, thank you. It's all about today, it would seem, with Jerry Jones. We'll have much more on the Giants and Cowboys coming up, including a live report from inside the New York Giants camp. Coming up tonight.